Commander Arik Hale felt the shuttle tremble as it cut through the edge of the asteroid field. He sat rigid in the pilot's seat, fingers white on the controls. All around him, tiny rocks flashed by like shooting stars gone mad. Behind him, Princess Lyra of the Ashari watched with wide violet eyes that shone in the dim light of the cockpit. Her crystalline wings were folded neatly, their soft glow dimmed by worry. In that small cabin, the hum of life support was the only sound, besides the shuttle's violent shaking. Minutes before, everything had been calm. Arik and Lyra shared polite conversation about the Ashari Palace gardens and Earth's oceans. They had even traded jokes. He teased her about crystal tea ceremonies, and she laughed at his stories of Earth campfires. But now, amid alarms and jagged flashes of rock, there was no room for jokes. The Ashari star charts showed no friendly worlds for days. Their faster-than-light drive had taken a hit, and they were adrift in the void. Arik's training kicked in. He barked a calm order. "Lyra, seal the aft compartment. I'll try to stabilize the thrusters." His voice was steady, but inside, his heart pounded. He had faced danger before, but never with a princess at his side. Lyra's slim fingers moved with surprising strength as she pulled the safety latch. A hiss of recycled air followed. She braced herself against the bulkhead, dress and wings swaying in the artificial gravity. He switched the thrusters to manual. The main panel lit up in red warnings. Each lever felt heavy in his hand. Lyra floated closer, concern clear on her face. "Commander," she said softly, "what do you need me to do?" Her voice quivered slightly, but she did not look away. Arik met her gaze, surprised by her courage. "Hand me the power conduit cutter," he said. He pointed to a small storage locker. Lyra moved gracefully across the narrow aisle. Her bioluminescent skin glowed faintly as she opened the locker and retrieved the silver tool. She handed it to Arik, careful not to touch the exposed wiring. Their hands brushed. The cutter was cold, but it felt alive in Arik's palm. For a moment, both remembered a calmer time, flickering campfires on Earth and crystal ceremonies in the Ashari Palace. Nothing else mattered in that suspended instant except the tool and the other's steady breath. Arik knelt beside the damaged thruster manifold. Sparks flew as he clipped the broken conduit. Lyra leaned close, her face reflected in the loose wires. "Steady," she whispered. He nodded without taking his eyes off the circuit board. She placed a small, glowing crystal chip next to the damaged section. "This should help stabilize the power flow," she explained. The chip's light pulsed softly, and Arik connected the wires. Power hummed back into the thruster array. Bray, shuttle lurched less violently. Warning lights shifted from red to yellow. Lyra let out a quiet breath. Arik stood and straightened his uniform, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. "Good work, Princess," he said, offering a small smile. Lyra returned the smile, though her eyes still held worry. "We are not safe yet," she replied, "but we have more time." Her voice carried relief and something else, hope. They moved back to their seats. Arik ran a quick systems scan. Oxygen was low and the nearest repair station was days away by manual thrusters. He tapped the screen. "We have 48 hours of oxygen left. No more." Lyra's shoulders slumped. 48 hours, she echoed. Arik reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "We fix the drive or we find a way to signal for help." His tone was firm. Her violet eyes brightened with determination. Night passed in recycled air. Arik took the first watch while Lyra rested in the small crew berth. He studied her sleeping form, the rise and fall of her chest, the faint glow of her skin. He wondered what had drawn her to Earth's darkest corners, why her people had ancient legends about human courage. He remembered his daughter's laughing face and wished he could see her again soon. In the silence of the shuttle, emotions felt sharper, more urgent. When Lyra awakened, Arik was waiting with 2 cups of nutrient tea. He offered her one, watching as she sipped the bland drink. She cringed at the taste and laughed softly. Arik chuckled too, the sound echoing oddly in the metal cabin. "Better than nothing," she muttered, eyes twinkling. The moment broke the tension. For a heartbeat, they were just two people sharing a strange tea in a tin can. They spent the next hours dissecting the FTL drive schematics. Lyra traced delicate lines on the star map, translating Ashari symbols for Auric. He adjusted the shuttle's computer inputs, typing commands with precision. They worked side by side, hands occasionally, touching as they passed tools and shared notes. Neither spoke of the quiet spark that grew between them, but it lingered in every glance. By midday, they reached a critical step. A damaged plasma coil needed precise alignment. Auric readied the coil, Lyra directed from the console. Outside, the baby blue nebula cast soft shadows across the viewport. In that glow, the shuttle felt less like a prison and more like a sanctuary of two souls fighting the void together. With a final twist, Auric secured the coil. The FTL drive powered up, lights flickering green. Alarms faded. The shuttle hummed with new life. Lyra's face broke into a bright smile. Auric exhaled, a slow, steady breath. They stood in the middle of the cockpit, engines roaring quietly beneath their feet. For a moment, all was still. Then, Lyra laughed, a clear musical sound. Auric joined in, and laughter filled the tiny cabin. They had bought themselves more time. Yet as they prepared to test the drive, both felt a pang of sadness. The moment of crisis had drawn them close, and now the world of duty and distance threatened to pull them apart. Still, in that instant, stranded between stars, they found a shared strength. Their journey had only begun, and neither could say how long they could resist the call of the other's heart. Commander Auric Hale opened the shuttle's food locker and retrieved 2 packets of nutrient paste. The pale tubes were tasteless, but they offered needed energy. Princess Lyra floated beside him in the small galley. Her violet skin glowed softly under the overhead lights. She watched Auric with concern. He handed her a packet. "Eat," he said gently. Lyra nodded. She squeezed the tube, and a thin ribbon of paste appeared on her plate. She tasted it carefully and made a polite face. "Still as bland as last time," she teased. Auric smiled. "Better than nothing," he said. They ate in silence, comforted by each other's company. Later, Lyra stepped into the shuttle's recording bay. She activated the holographic camera and took a deep breath. "My people must know of our progress," she said in Ashari. Her words formed glowing symbols in the air. She recounted how Auric had saved the thrusters and how they would attempt the FTL drive soon. She spoke of the nebula's beauty and the danger they faced. When she finished, the symbols dissolved. Still standing before the camera, Lyra added softly, "I hope Earth's commander survives this journey." She paused, touching the console with a gentle finger. Then she shut the camera off and returned to the cockpit. In his private berth, Auric watched a series of video messages from his daughter, Maya. Her curly hair bounced as she laughed in the footage. She held up a drawing of their dog, her letters shaky but clear. "I miss you, Dad." His chest tightened. He paused the replay and closed his eyes. The hum of the shuttle felt distant. For a moment, he saw Maya's smiling face and heard her soft voice begging him to come home. He pressed his hand against the wall as if he could push through it and reach her. After a few breaths, he steadied himself and turned off the holo projector. Duty and hope steeled his heart once more. The Odyssey drifted through empty space for hours. The stars outside the viewport formed silent patterns. Lyra sat beside Auric, tracing lines on the star map. She pointed to a distant repair station, 10 light days away. "If we reach it, we can get supplies and fix the FTL drive," she said. Auric nodded and tapped his finger on the console. "We need to boost our signal so they can find us," he replied. Lyra's wings shifted as she leaned forward, studying the signal booster schematic. The room felt warmer, filled with purpose. Together they worked to reroute power from the life support to the antenna array. Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the main panel. A low alarm sounded. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Auric hurried to the console. Coolant pressure dropping, he announced. The line to the life support heat exchanger was leaking. Without repair, the cabin would overheat in minutes. Arik grabbed the toolkit. Lyra floated beside him. I have the engineering code, she said. I'll read the manual. She accessed the Ashari engineering database stored in her crystal pendant. Symbols shimmered in the air. She translated quickly, clamped the line, then replaced the filter valve. In the cramped maintenance tunnel, Arik knelt on one knee. The metal walls felt cold against his uniform. Lyra hovered above him, guiding his hands. He cut away the damaged section of pipe as she described each symbol. Her voice was soft but urgent. When sparks flew, Arik flinched. Lyra reached down and placed her hand on his shoulder. The glow from her skin eased the sting of fear. You can do this, she whispered. He met her eyes through the visor and found strength. With steady hands, he installed the new valve. The hiss of escaping coolant slowed, then stopped. Back in the cockpit, they watched the life support gauge climb. The temperature stabilized. Lyra closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. Arik offered her a spare tube of nutrient paste, and she took it with a small smile. They shared the snack, each bite a silent promise of care. The tension eased, replaced by a calm warmth. Arik looked at Lyra's reflective wings. I never thought I'd work on life support in space with a princess, he said softly. Lyra laughed, the sound bright against the control panels. And I never thought I'd trust a human to save my shuttle, she replied. Their eyes met and held. As hours passed, their conversation turned from repairs to memories. Arik spoke of Earth's forests and oceans. He described the scents of pine trees and the taste of fresh rain on his tongue. Lyra closed her eyes and imagined the green fields. Then she shared stories of the Ashari Palace. She spoke of crystal gardens that chimed in the wind and halls lit by floating lights. Arik listened in wonder. Neither noticed the way their hands drifted closer across the console. When their fingers touched, they froze for an instant before pulling back, cheeks warm. Night fell again in the shuttle, but the darkness felt softer now. Outside, the stars shone like distant beacons. Inside, Arik and Lyra leaned back in their seats. The FTL drive, jury-rigged but hopeful, waited for a final test. They both knew the next attempt might bring rescue or more danger. Yet in that quiet moment, they were not pilot and princess. They were two souls sharing memories of home and dreaming of a future together. The hum of the shuttle's engines was a gentle lullaby. In the echo of holographic diaries and video messages, they found a bond stronger than the void around them, and neither could say how long they would resist letting that bond grow. Commander Arik Hale studied the flickering console lights as the Odyssey drifted nearer to the nebula's edge. The soft glow of nebular gases painted the cockpit in pale blues and purples. Princess Lyra hovered beside him, her crystalline wings folding and unfolding as she watched him work. Outside, the nebula's charged particles danced like unseen storms, warning them of dangers yet to come. Arik tapped a series of commands. The FTL drive is ready for a test, he said, voice steady. Lyra nodded, fingers brushing against the console's smooth surface. I will monitor the energy flux, she replied. Her eyes shone with confidence, but Arik sensed her heart racing beneath the calm. He touched her hand for a moment, a small gesture but enough to share strength. He engaged the drive. The hum deepened, and the shuttle quivered. On the viewport, twin stars dipped behind swirling gas. Arik held his breath as power levels climbed. Then, without warning, the nebula unleashed a sudden solar flare. A wave of charged particles slammed into the hull, rattling the cabin like thunder on glass. Warning alarms screamed. Arik cursed and yanked the control yoke. Flare incoming. Shields at maximum now. The energy shields flared to life, glowing bright red around the ship's outline. Lyra pressed her hand to the shield control. We must divert power from the FTL to the shields, she exclaimed. Arik cut the drive's power feed. The hum died, leaving only the shriek of the alarms. Outside, the flare's white-hot light pressed against the viewport. Sparks danced across the shield interface. The ship groaned under the pressure, panels buckling slightly. Lyra clung to the console rail. Her violet skin glowed brighter as she focused all her mental energy on the shields. Arik watched her, awed by her silent power. Then the lights flashed, off. The cabin went dark, save for the flicker of emergency strobes. They were cut off from every system: life support, communications, navigation. The Odyssey floated, a helpless speck. Arik set his jaw. "We have to fix the power conduit in the external bay," he said. Lyra nodded and called out, "EVA airlock, stand by." The chamber's outer door hissed open. Arik checked his suit's readouts. Oxygen at 95%. Suit integrity intact. He stepped inside, and the inner door sealed behind him. Lyra slipped into the airlock after him, her form lit by the dim red glow of emergency lights. The claustrophobic space made her wings curl tight. "On 3, Arik said. Their voices echoed in the small chamber. 1, 2, 3. The outer hatch blew open. They drifted into space, tethered by safety lines. Outside, the solar flare's wreckage twisted through the nebula. A large power conduit dangled from the shut-down FTL drive, its wires sparking. Arik reached for the conduit. The sparks crackled like tiny lightning bolts. He raised the cutter, tool. Lyra hovered close, her crystal pendant glowing. "I will guide your hands," she said. Her telepathic gift shimmered through their link, brushing Arik's thoughts with calm assurance. She sensed his tension, fed him courage. He inhaled and snipped the damaged wire. Metal tore with a sharp crack. A fresh burst of charged particles struck the hull. Arik flinched. One of his suit's lights flickered. Lyra noticed and telepathically checked his vitals. "All right," she said. "Continue." He isolated the broken segment and fitted a new power module that Lyra held. The module came from the shuttle's emergency repair kit, an Ash'ari design that she had insisted they carry. Her slender fingers pressed it into place. Arik twisted the latches. The module snapped in. Sparks ceased. The conduit glowed with soft green light. "It's stable," Arik announced. He clipped the last connector. Lyra directed him to reroute a shield feed. With a quick recalibration, the green pulse brightened to blue. Power roared back into the shields. The alarms quieted. They floated in silence, tether lines taut between them and the airlock. Arik stared at Lyra's face, framed by the airlock's red glow. Her violet eyes shone with relief. He realized then how close he felt to her. In the cold emptiness of space, their hearts burned warm. "Thank you," he whispered. Lyra smiled, her wings unfurling slightly. "You saved us both," she replied. In that moment, she reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. Her touch was gentle, electric. Arik felt it like a spark deep in his chest. Behind them, the nebula returned to calm. The damaged stars resumed their steady glow. Arik and Lyra drifted back to the airlock, returning as one into the red-lit chamber. The outer door sealed, and the inner hatch opened with a sigh. Inside, the cockpit, the backup lights cast long shadows. Arik collapsed into his seat, breathing hard. Lyra moved to the console, fingers dancing across the panels. "Shields are stable. Life support is back online," she reported. Arik leaned back. "We did it," he breathed, exhaling his fear. He looked at Lyra, seated beside him now. Her wings glowed softly in the low light. "You did it," he said. Lyra's eyes softened. "We did it," she corrected him. She reached out and took his hand. They sat there, hands clasped above the console, watching the nebula's pastel colors shift outside. Neither spoke. Words felt too small for the bond they had forged in the storm. After a long moment, Arik spoke. "We cannot stay here forever. We must test the FTL drive again." His tone was resolute, but his gaze held a new warmth. Lyra nodded, leaning her shoulder against his. "Together," she said simply. He squeezed her hand and began the startup sequence. The cockpit hummed as systems powered up. Warning lights blinked off one by one. The view ahead shimmered as the Odyssey aligned itself for the jump. As they prepared, Arik glanced at Lyra. She returned his look, a soft smile playing on her lips. Around them, the nebula glowed as if cheering them on. He took a deep breath and activated the FTL drive. Stars stretched into lines of light. The shuttle lurched forward, ripping through space. In the cockpit, Arik and Lyra held fast. They shared a glance of triumph and relief. The storm was behind them. Another crisis survived. Yet as the stars streaked past, both felt a new challenge ahead. The bond formed in the heart of that storm would test them more than any nebulous fury, and neither could say how long they could resist the pull of that bond, or whether they should even try. The shuttle's engine hum had settled into a steady pulse. Commander Arik Hale guided Princess Lyra through the narrow corridor toward the zero-gravity chamber. The door hissed open, revealing an empty room with soft, glowing panels. Here, the bar air felt lighter, and their uniforms floated around them in gentle arcs. Lyra looked at Arik, her violet eyes reflecting hope and uncertainty. He offered a small, reassuring nod. They drifted inside, hands brushing as they released their magnetic boots. In 0G, every movement felt slow and precious. Arik reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The edges were worn and colored crayon smudges stained the surface. "This is for you," he said, holding it out. Lyra took the paper carefully. On it was a child's drawing of a dog chasing a ball under a bright sun. "Your daughter?" she asked softly. Arik smiled, a mix of pride and pain. "Maya drew it," he replied. "She says she wants to meet the princess one day." He watched Lyra's face as she studied the drawing. Her fingers traced the wavy lines. "She is brave," Lyra said, "to draw such joy when you are apart." Arik felt a lump in his throat. He floated closer and whispered, "I miss her every moment." Lyra's wings drifted gently behind her. She reached into a hidden pocket of her dress and drew out a small crystal. It was cool to the touch and glowed with pale blue light. "This is from my mother," Lyra said. "She wore it when she first became princess. It brings clarity and calm." She held it between her fingers, the light pulsing like a heartbeat. Arik watched the crystal's glow dance across her face. For a long moment they floated in silence, each holding the other's treasure. Outside the chamber's viewport, stars drifted by like distant lanterns. Inside, their hearts beat fast. Arik finally spoke, voice low. "We share our homes and hopes. Yet we are bound by duty." Lyra nodded, her wings folding close. "My people expect me to return soon," she answered. "I must rule wisely. We cannot be together, yet." A hush fell between them. The glow of the crystal and the child's drawing seemed to tether them to two different worlds. Arik's jaw tightened. He knew the rules. No royal attachments, no interference in alien courts. Lyra felt the weight of her crown, even here where no one could see it. Her throat tightened with unspoken longing. Arik drifted closer until their helmets almost touched. "What if we break those rules?" he asked. His voice was gentle, urgent. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She searched his eyes, earth-brown warmth meeting violet light. Around them, the echoes of their confessions hung in the air. Slowly, Lyra reached out and brushed a strand of hair from Arik's forehead. Her fingertip lingered on his skin behind the visor. In that instant, the last barriers fell away. Arik's hand found her crystal pendant, and he held it between them. The glow brightened. Lyra's heart pounded. Without another word, Arik closed the small distance and pressed his lips to Lyra's. In 0G, the kiss felt weightless, timeless. The crystal's light flickered around them like a private aurora. Lyra's wings floated free, then curved protectively around both of them. Arik's arms wrapped her gently, pulling her closer. They broke apart only when their air supplies ticked softly in their ears. Lyra's cheeks were flushed beneath her helmet. Aric's breath came fast, neither spoke. Instead, they drifted side by side, foreheads touching, the drawing and crystal pressed against each other. The universe outside paused, and only their hearts moved. Then the chamber's comm panel beeped. A soft chime carried through the empty room. Aric straightened and turned to the console. Lyra floated beside him, wings folding back into their usual shape. The panel displayed a simple message. Rescue vector acquired. Nearest Ashari escort in 2 hours. Lyra's eyes widened. They found us, she whispered. Relief and dread washed over her. Aric tapped the screen. We'll dock shortly, he said. His voice was calm, but inside he felt a storm. They had shared a perfect, forbidden moment, and now reality came rushing back. Lyra looked at Aric, conflict in her gaze. When we arrive, duty returns, she said. My throne, your orders. Her voice trembled. Aric brushed his thumb along her helmet's edge. Yes, he agreed softly. But for now we have each other's promise. They gathered their treasures, the drawing and the crystal, and tucked them away. As they left the 0G chamber, side by side, the stars outside seemed to shine brighter. For those fleeting moments they had surrendered to their hearts. Now they would face duty and tradition. But neither would forget the weightless confession they had made. The corridor, lights guided them back to the cockpit. Beyond the viewport, the Ashari escort ship glowed with welcoming lights. As the Odyssey aligned for docking, Aric and Lyra exchanged one last look, one that held both sorrow and hope. They could not know what the future held, yet in the quiet, between duty and desire, they had found a truth no star could erase. The clamps of the docking bay hissed as the Odyssey locked onto the Ashari escort ship, Celestara. Commander Aric Hale and Princess Lyra stood side by side at the viewport. Through the thick glass, they saw the great ship's crystal hull glint in nebular light. Both their hearts pounded, not with fear now, but with the weight of what was to come. Aric straightened his jacket and met Lyra's eyes. The princess, radiant in her violet gown, held the small child's drawing and her mother's crystal close to her chest. Neither spoke. Words felt too heavy for the promise they shared. A soft chime announced the opening of the docking tunnel. Lyra stepped forward, then paused. Aric reached for her hand, his fingers curled around hers, warm, through the glove. No matter what happens, he said quietly. Whatever the rules say, remember our promise. Lyra's wings fluttered under her dress, and she leaned into his touch. I will, she replied. Always. Her voice trembled with hope and sorrow. They walked through the tunnel together. The lights above them were pale blue, and the walls hummed with energy. Aric carried his toolkit at his side. Lyra balanced her crystal and drawing in her free hand. At the far end, 2 Ash'ari officers waited. Their armor was etched with swirling patterns of light. One stepped forward and bowed. Princess Lyra, he said in their soft, musical tongue. Lyra inclined her head. The commander's gaze flicked to Aric. The officer spoke slowly in common speech. Commander Hale, welcome. We are glad you are unharmed. Aric returned the bow. Thank you, he said. Behind him, Lyra squeezed his hand once, then released it. Duty called her back. They entered the grand foyer of Celestara. The room was vast, with floors of polished crystal that reflected the nebula's shifting colors. Tall pillars of light rose to a domed ceiling, where star-like points shimmered. Courtiers and officers gathered at the edges, watching in respectful silence. Lyra's retinue formed 2 lines down the hall, leaving a path for her and Aric. As they walked, Lyra's heart raced. Memories of their time together played behind her eyes, sharing tea in the cockpit, fixing the coolant line, confessing in 0G. She drew strength from those memories. Aric walked with steady steps beside her, calm and sure. At the end of the hall stood Queen Amara, Lyra's mother. The queen's long white hair framed a serene face with crystal blue eyes. She wore a gown of starlight silver that seemed to glow from within. When Lyra and Auric reached her, the queen's expression was unreadable. "Mother," Lyra said, voice soft. "Daughter," the queen replied, voice warm but firm. She turned to Auric. "Commander Hale, you have protected my child and my people. For this, I offer you safe passage and thanks." Auric bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, it was my honor." Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, may I speak freely?" The queen inclined her head. "You may." Lyra took a steadying breath. "Commander Hale is more than my escort. He is my friend, and my heart," she said. She looked at Auric, whose brown eyes gleamed with pride and emotion. A hush fell over the hall. Queen Amara studied her daughter. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the queen gave a small smile. "You follow your heart," she said. "But you also follow duty. You both have served the peace between our worlds. I will not stand in your way." Lyra's relief shone in her eyes. Auric exhaled slowly. The courtiers seemed to glow brighter, as if the crystal walls echoed the shift in mood. The queen turned to her officers. "Prepare a guest suite for Commander Hale," she ordered, "and send word to Earth that he is safe." The lead officer bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." Auric felt Lyra's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently, words unneeded in that golden moment. They turned together and walked down the hall, their steps echoing in the crystal chamber. Later, in a private garden courtyard aboard Celestara, Auric and Lyra stood beneath a dome of floating lights. Crystal flowers chimed softly as an artificial breeze stirred. Lyra placed the child's drawing on a low bench. Then she set her mother's, crystal beside it. "Together," she whispered. Auric reached out, touching the petals of a glowing flower. "Lyra," he said, voice trembling with emotion. "I want to help build a bridge between our peoples. To explore new worlds at your side." Lyra's wings fluttered in delight. "And I want to learn your Earth, share my Ashari home with you." She stepped close until their foreheads touched. "We can do this," she said. They embraced, the crystal lights casting prismatic colors across their forms. In that courtyard, two worlds met not in conflict but in love and hope. Auric's heart felt full, warmer than any engine could make it. Lyra's soul sang with new possibility. Beyond, the dome stars winked in the vast black. The nebula's gentle glow bathed the scene in pastel blues and pinks. Time seemed to pause as they held each other, each breath a vow of unity. In the days that followed, the Odyssey was towed aboard Celestara for full repairs. Auric spent mornings, wandering Ashari corridors, studying crystal gardens and ancient murals. Lyra guided him in the palace chambers, telling him stories of her people's history and dreams for the future. At night, they met in the same garden courtyard. Each evening they spoke of Earth's forests, of Ash'ari festivals, of children's laughter under twin moons. Their bond grew deeper than any engine's power, as real as the stars themselves. When the repairs finished, the shuttle gleamed like new. The queen held a small ceremony in the docking bay. Auric stood beside Lyra as she addressed both crews. "Today marks not only our safe return," she said, "but the start of a new alliance. Commander Hale will be our honored envoy to Earth, bringing goodwill and friendship." Auric bowed to both royal and crew, then looked at Lyra with awe. She, the princess of an alien world, had made him an ambassador to her people. Hand in hand, they boarded the Odyssey for the journey home. As the shuttle's engines flared to life, Auric glanced at Lyra. She smiled, her wings glowing softly. Above them, the nebula faded behind, and the path to Earth opened ahead. Together, they steered toward the stars, ready to face whatever the universe would bring, united by duty, respect, and the love they had discovered in the void. And so, in the silent majesty of space, a human commander and an alien princess set out to forge their shared future, one powered by hope, trust, and a bond that could not be broken by distance, duty, or even the vast emptiness between the stars.